Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film The Encampments, directed by Michael T. Workman and K. Pritsker. This documentary is an inside view of the Gaza protests that took place at Columbia University. It's making no attempt to be impartial, and I don't have a problem with this. I'm a firm believer that there's always a point of view behind the documentary, that there is no pure objectivity. In order to understand an issue, I do like to hear all sides of the argument, but as long as I know the perspective of a filmmaker, I do think that it can work to present a particular perspective, and this is what The Encampments does. It's not a polemic, nor is it a traditional documentary in that balanced journalism sense. There's no opposing voice, no real perspective from the university administration or the authorities, no attempt at both sides. And while that might be a limitation in some contexts, here it feels like a conscious choice. This isn't an analysis of the encampments, it's a documentary of being inside them. I found for the most part that this is a gripping story. It's shot with a jittery, handheld urgency. It throws us right into the heart of the protest that started at Columbia University. You feel the rawness, the adrenaline, the tension. The camera is so close, it very much takes you inside this action from the students. There is a rawness to the filmmaking that captures the spirit of grassroots resistance, not in a polished, celebratory way, but with the scrappy immediacy of people figuring it out on the ground. The editing and music choices amplify this. They propel the narrative with real energy, turning chaotic moments into sequences that feel like they bristle with purpose. That said, I did have the feeling that the film's attempts to broaden its lens sometimes falters. Snippets of historical context are provided. There are parallels made with the 1968 Columbia protests. There are fragments of the Palestinian tragedy, including a harrowing story of a child killed in a car. All of this does feel very powerful, but it's very anecdotal. These anecdotes lack the weight or depth to feel fully integrated into the narrative, functioning more as emotional flashpoints than structural anchors. I have mixed feelings about whether they should have been more developed or not included at all. I think either could have worked, but it doesn't quite work as it is. I'm not saying that the horrific story of the child being killed in the car doesn't have enough weight. It's totally shocking and everyone should know this story. It's just that it doesn't quite fit into the film as it is. For me, the purpose of the film is to show that this is a group of students, some of whom seem down-to-earth, ordinary people, not fundamentalists or radicals, people that don't want their university financially supporting the Israeli occupation of Gaza in any way. This is a really good message. The issue for me is that the film could have shown a deeper level of why the students feel so angry. I would have liked to have seen this done in a more rigorous, robust way. Will this film change anyone's beliefs on Israel and Gaza or the actions of the students? I don't really think so. If you already support Israel's actions or see these students as dangerous radicals, this film doesn't offer very much. I don't think it's designed to persuade. But for those unfamiliar with the protests or who've only encountered them through sensationalist media coverage, there is a chance that this might shift attitudes. Some of the basic facts, which have been well reported and documented in parts of the media, who the students are, what they're asking for, how the university and police responded, may land with real impact. The question of whether the film presents a complete inside view of the encampments is hard to know. There's another documentary that recently came out on the protests called October the 8th. I can't find any screenings or streamings of this at the moment, but this presents the same events from the opposite perspective. The trailer certainly presents a very different picture of the protesters than we see in the encampments. In the end, for me, I think that whether the film is presenting a complete inside view is perhaps beside the point. For me, it's not rigorous enough to be considered as any kind of definitive analysis. But what it does do successfully is to expose the absurdity of media portrayals that branded all of these students as terrorists or Hamas sympathisers. The footage makes a mockery of those claims. At least some of these students are thoughtful, passionate young people wrestling with a world on fire, not necessarily radicals, just morally awake. One thing that's very strong is the inclusion of the views of Jewish students that joined the protest. This is a fact that's often overlooked in media discussion of this kind of demonstration. This raises really interesting questions around simple conclusions that the action was anti-Semitic. The film doesn't show very much at all of pro-Israel students. What it does show is very angry people that in some cases seem to turn violent. I'm sure that there were many pro-Israel students that were peaceful, yet did feel threatened by the action. In the trailer for October the 8th, we do see apparent images of pro-Palestinian activists attacking pro-Israel students. As I say though, I don't really see this as a flaw for the Encampments. It's making no claim to be impartial. I'll certainly watch October the 8th if I can. I think in some ways I prefer to watch two partial documentaries with opposing points of view than one that tries to find the right balance between the two views. Where there is a flaw in the Encampments is in the film's conclusion, or lack thereof. The story fizzles out rather than ends. The protests collapse under the weight of suppression by the authorities and the police. It's realistic, yes, that was the ending, but cinematically it left me with a sense of incompletion. The brutality of the crackdown is shown in a really effective way, but its implications are not adequately explored. There's no epilogue or follow-up. From a filmmaking perspective, the documentary was so well made in terms of telling me a story that engaged me. I think it deserved a more complete ending, although to be fair, I'm not sure what it could have been. Overall, however, as a piece of activist documentary, this is a forceful, necessary work. It doesn't posture as art, it's not in any way an analysis of the student protest and the reason for it, but it doesn't need to be. Its job is to witness, and it's on those terms, with a slight issue with the ending, that for me, it really succeeds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.